Hey everyone, so we just got a new Retold update, which is exciting news. I'm a big fan of patches as frequently as they come. Um, just not before any big tournament, of course, but in any case, the patch is here, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to go over and talk about. So I am going to be a little bit critical of a few things, but we have to understand that these patches are constructed well ahead of time. So the stuff that the issues that are plaguing us today are probably too recent for them to actually address in these patches. So we got to give them a little bit of leeway in that regard. But overall, I think they're a little bit too conservative with the patches that are coming out right now. They're making small little changes, which I believe, I mean, some people might think it's the right thing to do, but I think a significant overhaul needs to be done relatively soon because gameplay at the top tier of the ladder is a little bit abusive in many regards. So we're going to talk about all of those things going forward. So let's just jump right into it. And now I don't want to waste too much of your time, and I also want to stream after this, so I'm not going to go through every little tiny change. There's changes like the stability and performance changes, which are great, but we don't really need to dive into them one by one, so I'm going to skip these ones for now. Same thing, like if I don't see anything that's going to impact us from a gameplay perspective, I'm just going to skip right past it. I did see this though, and I wanted to show you guys. I think this is a really tiny little line right here, but this is, for me, it's very impactful. I really enjoy having good graphics in any RTS game. Like for me, I just enjoy watching a nicely crafted game, and I also enjoy playing a nicely crafted game. And I want to show you guys something that they changed, which I don't know if it was already in the game, but on release, this was not there. You guys remember that I posted a video at some point very early on into the release of the game, and it said that when you turn the foliage on and you place a farm, it's very hard to see that farm. I remember pointing that out. But now, if I place a farm, it's still a little bit obstructed. I mean, there's no doubt it's a little bit obstructed, but it doesn't seem to be as bad as it was before. Um, yeah, so it's bearable now, but in the past, this was significantly worse. So if you're like a die-hard competitive player, don't care about graphics, just turn foliage off. But for me personally, I enjoy like looking at the game, a nicely crafted game, and I like looking at the foliage. So maybe I'm gonna turn it on at this point. Okay, so they changed some audio-related items. They changed some things to the UI. This could be impactful, so let's have a quick read. I'm gonna skim through it. Most of the stuff, I think it's not really going to be that impactful for us. We just want to look at the things that are going to change our gameplay day to day, right? And this stuff looks relatively meh, so we're going to just pass on that. Now they added pre-queue hotkeys as well. For those that don't know, pre-queue is basically, let's say that you want to advance to the next stage, you right-click it, and then you can click on your god ahead of time, and then as soon as you have enough resources, or as soon as you have the armory built or the criteria to advance to the next stage, it will automatically start advancing. You can do this for almost everything. So let's if I didn't have enough resources for this, I can right click it and it'll start, and as soon as I have enough resources I can upgrade it. But now what they did is they took it a step further. And if you go to the settings menu and you go to hotkeys, you guys can actually pre-queue, have a hotkeys for all these pre-queue items. Anyways, this is really cool as well. Now you can actually have a hotkey for finding your myth units. So am I gonna use that in my gameplay? Probably not. I think it's a lot more imperative to actually be able to select your heroes and select your range units, select your myth units. Probably not as frequent as I need to. So some people might want to use it. I personally don't think I would use it. This is no longer selected with the select all military hotkey, which is really good. I really hope that they remove the pharaoh off select all military hotkey as well, and they remove citizen heroes off select all heroes, which is insane that it's not done already. See what else we got here. These are all just little tiny changes that don't really impact us, so we're just gonna skip it all by. Alright, so now we have gameplay fixes. Yeah, like most of this stuff is not really gonna change our day to day. So I'm gonna skip it as well. Oh, this is something I actually want to talk to you guys about. I heard, and I'm not sure about this, I can't 100% confirm it, is if a centaur was to target a low armor unit, let's say the centaur targeted a slinger instead of, let's say, targeting a camel. The special that the centaur would use would be based upon the armor statistics of the slinger rather than the camel. You know how that you know how the centaur has a little circle in which I don't know, let's do this actually. Use paint. Okay, remember the centaur would have a little circle where it would rain arrows down upon your units? So apparently that was based upon the weakest unit, right? So if it was a slinger, the armor percentage was based upon the slinger in the past. Now, I believe it's not going to do that anymore. It's not going to use a slinger. It's just going to do just a general amount of damage in that specific area. Okay, so I think that's what it's referring to. So let's keep on going. All right, so this is a huge change as well. Now you can target sea snakes and water carnivores with your docks. So what does that mean? So if somebody's going to be using sea snakes, or if they're going to use water carnivores offensively, then they're going to have a harder time making it work, because now your opponent can play defensively, target these units, and actually be successful in doing so. Whereas in the past, you couldn't target sea snakes with your docks, with fishing boats loaded up inside your dock. So it was excellent for offensive use. Like sea snakes were great for offensive use. Now you got to be a little bit more careful with how you use them. Some changes to deathmatch, which I'm gonna play in the future, but I just don't have the time right now to play 2 different game modes. So good that they're actually taking some time to change this as well. I think this was a good change. I think heroic fleet was a little bit too expensive. So when somebody had skillas, or they had krakens in your base, you didn't really want to get this upgrade, because like it's almost 400 resources and 15 favor, so it's about 550 resources just to get heroic fleet. Now I think it's still a little bit expensive. Maybe if this was 125, it would be a little bit better, but I think this is okay now. At least it's almost half the cost as this one right here, or not quite half, but still it's a lot cheaper, so that's good. So Greeks earn less favor depending on how many villagers they put on their temple. So it's just law of diminishing returns. You have it for different things in the game, and now you have it for favor generation for Greek as well. That's fine. Lure got a little bit buff, so now you can actually research granary upgrades. I think there was a bug in certain scenarios where you couldn't do it in the past, so little buff for Poseidon, which is nice. Dionysus got a buff as well for this. Apparently, according to my friends, this upgrade was absolutely trash, which is 20% lifesteal. Like, it's probably really good with Heteroi, but for other units like the Hippias or the Prodromos, it probably wouldn't benefit that much from 20%. But I think at 30%, it should be very useful. And I'm gonna do another video about unit upgrades in the future, like unique techs. So we're gonna discover this at that point. This is an excellent change. In my opinion, Curse was way too strong. And like, you can say, okay, Curse is strong, but so is Flaming Weapons, so is Bronze. You can go on that spiel, but realistically, those god powers require some level of effort in order to get value out of them, to derive value. Curse did not need anything. All you had to do was point and click, and you would get 850 resources worth of value. Now that it's 800, I still think it's really strong. Even at 750, I think this god power would be really strong. But this is kind of like one of the things I was thinking about. Like, the developers are being very conservative. In this situation, maybe it's warranted, but in a lot of other situations, which I'm going to talk about going forward, I don't think it's the right thing to do. And actually, this is a perfect example. I think the centaurs needed more of a nerf. Now, those of you those of you watching pro games and watching the top level of the ladder can know that centaurs are extremely oppressive. Having an extra 2 favor to the centaur cost is not going to really change the whole special tech. You guys know that, like, it's special tech that it's doing. It's special attack, raining down arrows. When you have 2 or 3 centaurs, this is so oppressive. Like, it actually melts the enemy's front line. There was a game I was playing just recently with a good player. His name is Don Artie, and he had 2 or 3 centaurs right near his town center, and they were absolutely melting my barracks units, and I was set. And this is like, I think it's just not fun gameplay when you have so much splash damage coming out of an age 2 myth unit. I think they really needed to look at the special for the centaur. I think this is okay that they changed this, but it's definitely not enough. And I think this is also one of my gripes. They shouldn't be so conservative in certain areas. Looks like, so the Archaic Age hero, just the Archaic Age hero, has got a train time reduction from 15 to 5. And it got a bonus for myth units increased to 9 to 12, but the hit points were reduced overall. Now, I was actually talking, this happened during Red Bull, and I was talking to my friend Mista, and we both agreed that in overall, this is a buff rather than a nerf. So Greek got, quote unquote, a much needed buff, right? I'm just kidding. I don't think they need any buffs. So here's Egyptians. Now, before I even look at this, in my opinion, the way the game is right now is the most complete, the most well-rounded civilization in the game is Greeks. As long as they are not being abused, they're gonna have the best army. They have some of the best. I think they have the best economy as well, with divine blood and whatnot. And they have by far the best units. So when I'm playing Egyptian and I'm playing against Greek, I always have a lot of trouble dealing with their army. So essentially, I think the Egyptian army needs a little bit of help. I've said it before. I've been saying it for, even when I was on the playtest committee, I've been saying that the Egyptian army needs a little bit of help. And the Greek army needs a little bit of a nerf, in my opinion. Am I wrong? Possibly. I could be wrong, but that's my take on it. So now what Ra is still at the low end of the ladder in terms of god rankings, right? They added berry bushes, which are now gathered 25% faster. Now I like this. I think this is a cool bonus, right? This can change the way the game is played. Something like this. Because now Ra doesn't need to just rely on farms. He can rely on external food sources. So he can rely on berries and hunt, and if he's able to get vamp control, he's going to have so much extra food compared to the other civilizations. So this is really cool bonus. Now, the issue is, does it change the fundamental problems with Ra? I don't think so. I think the fundamental problems remain, which is Ra doesn't have that much aggressive utility, like especially compared to like the age 3 god powers that other civilizations have. Ra doesn't really have that, right? So you have flaming weapons, you have chaos, you have curse, you have ancestors. What does Ra get? Ra gets a citadel, which gives you a little bit of extra pop, okay? Or Ra gets locust swarm, which, tickles your opponent's army a little bit. I don't think this changes the fundamental issues with Ra, but at least it's cool in the sense that Ra can be played a little bit differently. Looking at Isis got a little bit of a nerf. So Flood of the Nile got a cost increase. I think this is justified. People were getting this at like 1 minute and 50 seconds into the game. However, I think it was fun to have a build, like you can, kind of have this flexibility in your build order to be able to get cool upgrades like this. I think Isis does need a nerf, but I don't think this was the nerf that Isis needed. Isis needs a nerf in terms of its ancestors and eclipse potential, and Isis needs a nerf in terms of Valley of the Kings. Is this going to change anything really? I don't think so. That's why I'm also thinking, like, I feel like the developers need to zone in on the actual problems. Nobody ever, I don't see anyone complaining about Flood of the Nile being too cheap. It was good. I mean, it was it was an excellent bonus for Isis. But is it broken? I'm not so sure. That's just my take on it. Everyone's going to have a different opinion on it, and they're more than welcome to. So this got changed, the Electrum bullets. So instead of Instead of 15% extra damage, it does 1+1 divine damage. So that could be actually pretty cool. And I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out. I think this is overall it's a buff. Its cost went up as well, but I think this could be cool. I really want to test this out, and I want to see how this does. This is a cool change. Something that wasn't being used very often now might get some use, right? Plague of Serpents, Sea Snakes were nerfed. Okay, so went from 90 HP to 65. It's overall pack damage, chase distance, everything got nerfed. This is a good change. I think this needed to be done. I'm still of the opinion that you shouldn't have like 14 snakes. I think that's kind of overkill. It's just so annoying to deal with. Like somebody just casts 14 snakes in your base and you have to kind of like use your villagers and one by one kill them, or just try to have to get a bunch of army in place to kill them. I think it would be better if there was like 6 or 7 or 8 snakes and they did a lot more damage and they were a lot more effective. I think having so many snakes is just a little bit annoying for playing against. Okay. Locust Swarm is now wider, making it possible to damage more units. Once again, I don't think this is going to change much. Like, you're just going to tickle your opponent's army. Is it a good god power? It's okay. Like, it's not horrendous, but is it game changing? Is it something like a Flaming's Weapons? Is this something like a Frost? Is it something like, a Bronze or a Chaos? No, it doesn't have the same oomph as all the other Age 3 god powers. I don't think this is addressing the main issue, but I could be wrong. Okay, so you can patrol with the rock now. Petsukos got a bonus damage for myth units, which is okay. Garib got a buff as well. So these two are cool. I tried using Petsukos. Sadly, I tested this. I used this for the first time in my tournament game, which I shouldn't have done, and they weren't doing that well. So it's good to see that they got a little bit of a buff there. And it could have potential. This could be a good unit. This is something to keep an eye on. Monuments got nerfed. This is a little bit more expensive now. So this is kind of trying to address the ancestors and eclipse, a timing that hits very in most of the games that are happening right now. Do I think that this is a good change? I think this is okay. I think this kind of hurts Ra a little bit though, right? Like, just to punish Isis and your punish Set, you're going to be hurting Ra at the same time. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Once again, I know, like, I'm telling you, like, I just feel like the developers are walking around the changes, like they're walking around the problems rather than addressing them head on. What is the main problem with ISIS right now? The main problem is not the scorpion, like the massive scorpions that are hitting your base. It's the ancestors and eclipse on your economy. That's the main issue. This is not going to change any of that. This is still going to be just as oppressive. Like a lot of people were complaining about it, as far as I can tell. The converting villagers or dwarves to berserks was too easy, especially with Loki. Like, it's free. So I think they're addressing that. How I feel about it, I'm not too sure. I'm indifferent about this change. It doesn't matter to me that much. So Odin needed a little bit of a nerf. I think it was overperforming a little bit. So they decided to nerf the Great Hunt. It looks like the archaic age is the only one that got impacted. So I'm curious, if the classical age stays the same, then this nerf is essentially going to do nothing, because all people are going to do is they're just going to adjust their build orders, and they're going to use Great Hunt in age 2 rather than using it in age 1. So is this going to change much in that sense? No, it's not going to do anything. But maybe they also adjusted the classical age food as well. So I could be wrong about that. Please let me know in the comments if I am. So now the Raven got a little bit of a nerf. Okay, this is cool. I think this is necessary. Odin being able to get two scouts right as soon as they pop the temple down. I think it was kind of a little bit busted, because they know exactly where to attack. They know exactly what to do. They know where your hunt is. They know where your wood is. This kind of makes it a little bit more skill based, rather you just waypoint them into your opponent's base, and find out exactly what he's doing. So this is basically what I talked about earlier, right? Now berserks are no longer free. The cost is reduced by 50%. I think this is an okay change. I can see that in a lot of people, that a lot of games, this could be a little bit oppressive. Okay, VDR technology now indicated affected units with the VFX. Okay, this is huge actually. Like it doesn't seem so big, but this could be massive. Like the change in wood from 200 to 250 is going to impact a lot of build orders. So Atlantean got a little bit of a buff there, which is good. And Gaia got a much needed buff, which is cost reduction increased to 40%. So like this is cool. I think Gaia needed a little bit. Economic yield is also cheaper too. So that's crazy. Like this is going to be insane when you have these two in combination with one another. Gaia could be a really good god. And that's also why I didn't want to do a Gaia guide. And like people were asking me for one, but I knew that Gaia was going to get buffed, and I didn't know because I'm an insider or whatever. I just know that the god was not performing that well, so it makes sense to buff it. And I didn't think that her bonus with the, her cheaper economy bonus was that great. So I knew that the buff is going to come, and I knew the buff is going to come in terms of her economic upgrades. Did I think the guild was going to get cheaper as well? No, I didn't. I didn't think that, but I knew, like at the back of my mind, this is going to get buffed. Okay, this is nice little bonus as well. The Oceanus got a little bit of a buff actually. The water, water pierce armor 20 to 30, hack damage. Okay, so now it no longer kills ships instantly, I think, and instead it got a buff in terms of its just base stats, which I think is much better. I don't like units just being able to just kill one instantly. So this is a good change in my opinion. So Prometheus actually got nerfed. There was a technology for your Prometheans which gave you an HP increase, so that went from 30 to 20. So that got a little bit nerfed. And I also think that the cost, right, you can see at the bottom here, the cost went up for the technology. The cost went up for Prometheans in general. So do I think this was OP? I think this was hidden OP. I don't think anyone really abused it as much as they should, but this was actually really strong. No one really was abusing it though. It reduces the cost of heroizing cavalry units, which is a good change. This technology wasn't getting much use in my opinion. This is an amazing change. The tree, the Hesperides tree, I probably butchered that right now, but now you get 2 dryads each time you cast it. So you get like equivalent to 300 resources for free as soon as you use it. This is good because you couldn't compete with Hyperion, right? Hyperion was one of the reasons why Atlantean was actually performing as well as it was. But now you have another option. This is going to add some value to a different god path, a different teching mechanism. So this is good. I like this change. I really like this change. This technology got a little bit of a buff. Chaos, I don't think this is enough, to be honest. Like, ask yourself, look, okay, so let's just talk about it. Chaos got a cost increase from 50 favor to 60, cooldown 150 to 180. Once again, I think that they're kind of skirting around making direct changes to the god power, a conservative approach per se, but I don't think that's the right way to go about this. Like, Chaos, in my opinion, it's a little bit of a flawed GP, because if you use this correctly, and by correctly, I mean if you use this on counter units or units that have flaming weapons enacted upon them or something like that, this has the potential to end the game right there and then. It's such a strong god power. It needed a little bit of change in terms of its duration, perhaps, but I would rather have it a little bit cheaper, keep it at 50, keep the cooldown at 150, and reduce its duration. I think that would have been a better way to go about it, because right now you just one click, you use it in the right spot, it's going to win you the entire battle. For those that are not familiar with this, a friend of mine's actually told me about this, the Mista, which he said that if you use Chaos on a smaller number of units, the duration is much longer. So let's say you use Chaos on throwing axemen, 10 throwing axemen. The duration could be like 10 seconds. It's going to let them all kill each other. But if you use it on the entire army, the duration is going to be like 3 or 4 seconds, so it's not going to be as impactful. So a lot of people didn't know about that, but in my opinion, the more people understand this god power, the more broken it's going to be. I think its duration needs to be hit rather than just flirt around the cooldown and the cost. So Spider Lair got a little bit of a buff as well. Do I think this is enough to make it that like a decent god power? I don't think it's that great. I think it's okay. It's not terrible. Looks like the video is almost 30 minutes long, so I'm gonna kind of go a little bit faster now. We talked about this. Lampade's got a little bit of a buff. Okay, it's good to have. This is pretty massive. Like almost all of the Atlantean units got a buff in terms of its hero capabilities. That's really good. Arcus got a buff as well, which is they got a speed buff, which is nice. Honestly, like I feel like they got buffs to the manor. Economic guild is cheaper now as well. I think Atlantean could be S tier very soon. Like I think they were already good. I was very like hesitant on them buffing Atlantean because I know that they have a lot of potential. People just haven't figured it out yet. And another thing is Atlanteans were kind of being, they didn't have that many abusive things. Like for example, if you're playing versus an Egyptian with ancestors in Eclipse and you're Atlantean, you're just going to get wrecked, right? So a lot of their capabilities were being kind of resisted by a lot of the abusive stuff that was happening in the game right now. So I have a feeling that they're going to be right up there at the top very soon, especially after the developers nerf ancestors in Eclipse somehow. I really feel like, and just to finish off this little analysis, I think they need to take a closer look into Greeks. I think Greeks are, in my opinion, too complete of a civilization. It has everything that every other civilization, like it has a good H2, a good H3, and a good H4. It has the best units in the game, the best human units rather in the game. It has the most well-rounded god powers as well, like Lightning Storm, Curse, Bronze, Underworld. You can't go wrong with any of them. None of their stuff sucks. Like everything is good. So if you're an Egyptian player and you don't get to abuse like certain things like Ancestors in Eclipse or Valley of the Kings, stuff like that, then you're going to have a lot of trouble competing against Greeks head on, especially when their army is so much better than yours. Anyways, this video has gone on for a long, long time. Thank you guys if you stayed this long, thank you for listening. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Bye.